Today we're kegging 15 gallons of beer. So welcome to the Homebrew Hobby YouTube channel. My name is Tim, and today we're going to be kegging 3 kegs. The first will be my second 5 gallons of my Irish Red Ale, my Raging Red. Take a look here for a card to the recipe. And the second will be my 2 5-gallon carboy of my Belgian Wit, which I did just over a month ago. So I probably should have kegged it before now, just haven't had a chance. If you've noticed, I'm not downstairs in my man cave. I'm upstairs, partly due to the better lighting up here. If you want to see how we ended up here, watch this. All right, so we're back, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with this 5-gallon of Raging Red. I've already got my 3 kegs. I just simply rinse them out with some water, and I'm going to go through the kegging process just like I did in my last video. This time I'm going to try and get a few more close-ups because I got a bunch of comments or questions regarding what did I do? I did it too quick. Maybe I can show some things from up close. So that's the plan for today. So let's get to this. Just before getting started, I brought my carboys, my kegs, my Star San, my really big Star San, funnel, and should have had this ready, my siphon, and my keg covers, in case I didn't mention that. The O-rings are already sitting in Star San, and I've got some lube here. Can't forget the lube. Make your jokes. Make them now. All right, so one of the first things I wanted to mention before doing anything else is I use this super duper cheap painter's tape to write on my carboy when I brew it, because sometimes I have like 10 carboys in there. And what that affords me to do is when I'm ready to keg, I literally just pull it right off there and then just dump it right on there. And now when it goes in my fridge, I know it's wet. Yay! What I've done so far is I've just put my auto-siphon and my hose into my keg, and I'm just going to pour some Star San in there. I just want to be sure that I get some on both on the outside of the hose and on the inside of the keg. I'm going to give the keg a good swoosh later. The inside of the hose and the siphon is I don't need to worry about too much because I'm actually going to siphon some Star San from the keg or from the bottle, this bottle, back into the keg to make sure I get the inside of the siphon good and covered. So let's do that. Okay, so all my parts are in the keg and get them good and covered in Star San. I'm going to remove them, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to, you can see it's dripping there. And now I can pour it right back into my funnel. Accessory. Can't forget that. So now this guy is all sanitized. All right, so you can see me now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to siphon from the big bottle of Star San just simply into my spray bottle, just to be able to get some Star San inside the hose, just to sanitize the inside. So that's all. That's all we're doing here. Give that a couple of pumps. You can see the Star San starting to move. And it's foaming here, which means we're done. Just gonna remove this. I'm going to take out my little carboy accessory, which was soaking in the star sand. I'm just going to put that on there, mostly just to prevent it from going all the way down into the trub and whatnot. Drop it down pretty deep, and now I just put the other end of it in my carboy. I usually set my carboy on the bottom of one of these things just to get it raised up off the ground, so that as the beer is pouring into the keg, it doesn't spray too much and get oxidized. Oh, let's be a little more forceful than that. And there we go. As I mentioned in my first kegging video, I almost always use these to transport them. As you can see, I'm using one right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm just simply going to put something on underneath the opposite edge to tilt it a little bit towards me. That way I can get the wand, the auto-siphon, into a corner where the liquid's going to accumulate, so I can get as much liquid as possible without getting any gunk off the bottom. Now I can lean the entire crate a little bit forward still. Oh, getting near the end. The keg is about 80% full. All right, so as you can see, there's only about an inch and a half. It looks like it's way more than that, but maybe 2 inches of space between the top of the keg and the top of the beer. I'm okay with that. It's not a problem. Now I'm just going to remove my hose. If I was doing a second brew, just like the first, I would immediately just put it right into the next keg. But because I'm doing a different beer now, I'm going to want to rinse it out and go through the star sand process again. The only reason I'm doing the star sand process again is because I'll be manipulating it and putting it through water and whatnot. If it was another red, I would just go straight into the other brew. Time to close up the keg. Okay, so I've got my cover, and I've got my O-ring, got my lube. I know lots of people say they don't use lube, they don't need lube. I have lube, so I use lube. Again, make your jokes, do them now. I'll be drinking beer, it's all good. So, just gonna put this around. You can see it's nice and shiny because it's all lubed up. Now we're gonna put it back onto the keg. Star sand that puppy. Little off-camera star sanding. Put it in sideways. Turn it. There we go. And then just give it. There you go. This is the pressure release valve that I'm going to use later. So you just lift it up and it just lets some of the air or the gas out. We'll see that again in a few minutes. Okay, and so these are going to be the next two lovely ladies that are going to go into some carboys. So let's get started. Number 2. All right, so exactly same process for this one. And I'm going to do it real time. You guys are going to do it in fast forward. almost all the way to the top. I'm going to have to stop. Otherwise it's going to overflow. There you go. And that's about as full as I've ever seen a keg. Pure awesomeness. You can smell the orange. This is why we star sand the cover, because it's about to get some beer on it. There we go. Woohoo! The beer came right out of my gas line. Woohoo! Okay, so when the beer came out, it made me realize that I had forgotten to put my posts on because I was in such a hurry. So there's my in and my out. Actually, that's my in and that's my out. So I got to go get my posts. All right, so here are my posts, right? And you've got the gas, which is the one that's notched, and the liquid, which is the one that's not notched, and my poppets, which is essentially what seals it. So I just need to star sand these and a little bit of lube, and we're good to go. All right, and so that is what the finished product looks like. In real life, that should have taken maybe half an hour, 35 minutes. It took me probably over an hour because I was filming and I kept stopping to, do stuff. But there you go. Now we got to go pressurize these things and, of course, bring everything back down and clean. Okay, so here's the aftermath. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse them out first. I'm going to use this. I've shown this before. Give it a good spray inside with some lukewarm to cold water. Don't use hot water in your carboy. Bad things will happen. And then I'm going to pour about 2 tablespoons of OxyClean in each. And I'm going to leave them for probably about 48 hours. If necessary, my Super Magic wine decanter cleaner thingy. Description, go take a look. They're like $8. Cleans the inside of the carboy like nobody's business. Now, next thing we're going to do is we are going to pressurize all 3 kegs. I'm only going to, I'm going to pressurize them for storage, all 3 of them, but then I'm going to set one of the wit for 30 psi because I want to serve it in 2 or 3 days. But we want to pressurize the other 2 to get the O2 out and make sure there's only CO2 in it. Okay, so let's get to that. Okay, so we're at my smaller fridge. Essentially, this is the one that I usually use for pressurizing. Not always, but... so what we're going to do is we're just simply going to pressurize this thing. I'm going to put it at about 10 psi. Just to get the the O2 out, the air. Okay, so this is, it says inlet, but you'd also know because the gas in always is notched on the side here. I'm just going to turn that around. Okay, so we're going to press put the gas on the inlet or the side where the bolt is notched. Now you may or may not hear, oh, here. No, okay, so we're not hearing the gas. So what we're going to do is 1, 2, and that's all you need. That's all you need. Get rid of the O2 that's sitting at the top. The CO2 is going to push it out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this back off, take my star sand, right? And just check for bubbles. No bubbles, right? So what that means is I have a good seal. And there you go. That's the whole thing. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the other 2. I'm going to put the red and one of the wit back in storage. The second wit, I'm going to put it on here. I'm going to set it to 30 psi, and I'm going to drink it in 2 days. All right, so I hope you enjoyed today's video. I got to start cleaning these puppies now, rinsing them out. So if you had fun, maybe learned something, do me a favor, subscribe, leave me a thumbs up. And if you do have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll leave a couple of pieces of information in the video description. So otherwise, have a great day. Through the magic of video editing, we are now 2 days later. My keg should be carbonated, and I've already cleaned the other 3 carboys. I'm gonna do this one in a couple of minutes, but right now, let's try our wit. Okay, so if you'll recall the other day, I set my keg to 30 psi. It's not being quite 48 hours, but it's pretty close. If I were to try and tap this thing right now, it's still at 30 psi. I would have a nice little mess on my hands. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back under the sink, and I'm going to drop my pressure from 30 psi back down to about 8 or so. Now I'm just going to turn it all the way down. Am I turning it the right way? Minus, plus, so yes, I'm turning it the right way. You can see it's dropping. Step 1. Okay, so now that I've dropped the pressure going into the keg, I need to relieve the pressure that's in the keg because it's still at 30 psi in there right now. So just going to pull my release valve. Oh, that smells good. Okay, now back under the sink. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to bring this back up to about 8 or so. We now have 8 psi inside the keg. Got my picnic tap, Cobra tap. Just going to drop that right on there. Now I have a sink right there, and there's probably a little bit of the beer from the previous batch in this one. I'm just going to pour it into the sink real quick. I know, makes me sad too. You can see it going through the line. That's good enough. All right, let's do this. Beer. Close up the fridge. All right, so as you can see, it's not fully carbed up. I hardly have any head on there at all. That's just a time issue. If it's undercarbed, I can just put the PSI right back to the 30, and either wait until a couple hours, later tonight or even tomorrow morning, or I can give the keg a good shake for about 5 minutes straight, and that's going to force the CO2 into the beer. Let's give it a try. Just needs to be carved up a little more. Nice color, nice wheat beer color. Getting a little bit of the T58 funk, the Belgian yeast funk. Yep. Probably not enough coriander. I might have let it sit in the carboy too long. Oh, that's going to be good though when it gets really hot out in the next couple of days. Today it's raining, but they're announcing nice weather in the next couple of days. Okay, so there you go. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you later. When I'm ready to keg, I just rip it right off there. Oh my God.